Video is all about the dodge and burn tools. So if you have a photograph that's a little bit too dark in an area or too light in an area, there are a couple ways to fix it in Photoshop. And for that, you're going to be using the dodge tool or the burn tool. So the first thing you want to do is to make a copy of your original background, so your original image. So you just click on the layer and drag it down to the white square with the folded up corner, and that's going to give you a copy. So this way, any editing you do, you're doing it on a copy, not on your original. So if something goes awry, you still have what you started off with to work on. So in the left toolbar, you're going to find an icon that might have a lollipop looking icon, a hand, or a sponge. So when you press and hold on that, you'll be able to get the multiple options. So the lollipop is a dodge tool, and the dodge tool lightens areas up. The burn tool, which is the hand, darkens areas up. So we'll start with the dodge tool right now. Okay. So at the top of Photoshop, you have your options bar. So here you can change the type of brush you have, the size of it. So I like using the brush that kind of fades out, so that way you get a smoother transition. The size, depending on what you're working on, you might want a smaller brush or larger brush. So for my image, the area where the dirt is, right where the plant is planted in, is a little too dark. So it's a fairly large area. So the brush I have right now is teeny tiny, won't really do the job. So I'll make the brush size a little bit bigger. Right now, brush is way too big. Need to make it a little bit smaller. And sometimes you have to go back and forth just to try to find the right size. So that should be pretty sufficient for what I'm working with. Other options that you have are exposure. So exposure is how powerful of a change you'll get. So if you are at 100% exposure, you're going to get it a lot lighter, a lot faster. If you have it at 1%, you'll barely see any change. And then anywhere in between, you'll get a different range. I typically like to stay between 50% and 75%, so that way you get a nice gradual change and it won't be too dramatic. So I'll set it at 70. And now all you have to do is click and move the brush around, and you'll start to see your areas lighten up a little bit. Okay. Once again, this is a pretty gradual change because you want it to still look natural. So I did a few swipes. I unclicked. Now I'll click again. Kind of go over it a little bit more in some areas. Just little by little, you can start to see some of that dirt popping up. Some of the leaves and random stuff that the soil had. A little bit does go a long way. So really kind of work with it little by little. If you end up going a little too far, you can undo a few steps. You can go into your history and kind of backtrack a little bit, and that is another video that you can watch to learn a little bit more about the history options. But that is the dodge tool. And if you're not sure if what you did had any change or not, you can click on the little eyeball visibility, and when that eyeball disappears, you see your original. When the eyeball is clicked on, you see the change. Before, after, before, after. Okay, so you can significantly see that there was a change made. That area did lighten up. So then the dodge tool, you can change that into the burn tool, and the burn tool is going to darken up an area for you. So I like to always make copies of copies when I work, so that way if something goes awry, I can still go back to it. So I just made a copy of my copy. So now I'm making sure that I'm clicked on that top layer, and that's what I'm going to work on. With the burn tool, same thing as before. You have your options up top where you can change the size of the brush to whatever you need it to be, your exposure, all that jazz. So the pot that my plant is in got a little blown out. It's really light, so I'm just going to use my burn tool to darken it up a little bit. And once again, a little bit goes a long way. You still want it to look natural. And there we go. So before, after, before, after. And here is the before I even did the dodge and burn, and here is after the dodge and burn. So you can see that there's been a significant change made. Everything looks a little more realistic. You have your details where you need them to be.